Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make a ricotta cheesecake. The first thing we need to make is the graham cracker crust. So let's preheat our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, and you will need a 9-inch, 23 centimeter springform pan. And this is a springform pan. It comes in two pieces. You have the ring with the clip, and then you just put your bottom plate in there and snap it shut. And we're using this because it makes it so much easier to get the cheesecake out of the pan once it's baked. We just release the sides and take off the ring, rather than if you use a cake pan, you have to flip it over. So just either butter it, or I'm just using one of these non-stick sprays. And then we're going to use a water bath for this, for baking this cheesecake. So I like to wrap the outside of the pan with some aluminum foil, just so that the water doesn't just happen to seep into the pan. So I'm using 2 sheets of aluminum foil. If you have a heavy, you can just use one. And then just wrap your pan. Doesn't have to be fancy. So that's good. So now our graham cracker crust. You will need in a bowl 1 cup, that's 100 grams of graham cracker crumbs. Now you can buy graham cracker crumbs in a box. Personally, I prefer the taste of using actual graham crackers and then just finely grinding them. So either one. If you're measuring by cups, you will need probably, to get a cup, I think 6½ of these full grain crackers. If you have a scale, this is a great place to use it, because you can just put your grain crackers right on your scale. Get to 100. That's exactly 100, 6½. So, and then you don't have to measure again. And then you could grind them up in your food processor if you want. I just tend to take one of these plastic bags, put my graham crackers in there, and then you can either take a rolling pin, anything heavy, I'm using one of these meat cleavers, and just kind of like that until they're found in the ground. Pretty simple. Now, if you can't find graham crackers, another great alternative is digestive cookies. They're just as good as the graham crackers. Some people say better. I'll leave that up to you. So now, we have our 1 cup, 100 grams of graham cracker crumbs. If you want, you don't have to. You can sweeten it with 2 tablespoons of granulated white sugar. That's 25 grams. If you don't think they're sweet enough. And then you will need 4 tablespoons, 55 grams of melted butter. You can use salted or unsalted, whatever you like or have in the house. And as you can see, this is a really easy crust to make. So what you want to do is just kind of make sure all the crumbs are moistened. As you can see, they kind of stick together when you put them between your fingers. That's how you know you've got enough butter. If they really didn't hold together at all, you might want to add a touch more butter, melted butter. But that's good. So, and now we're not going to put it up. We're not going to have our crust going up the sides of the pan. We're just going to do it on the bottom. So you can use your fingers to do this, or back of a spoon. You want to make sure you really press the crumbs together, because we're not going to bake this. I mean, some people like to bake their graham cracker crust, which you can do in the oven for 7 or 8 minutes, just to brown it a little. But we're just going to chill it today, make it simple. I'm just going to use my fingers here. Just really press that down. Okay, that looks good. So now what I'm going to do is just put this in the refrigerator to chill, maybe for 10 minutes. And I'll set up and we'll come back and we'll make our cheesecake batter. So now we'll make our cheesecake batter. You could use, I'm using a food processor today. If you didn't want to use that, you could use an electric stand mixer, or you could use a hand mixer, or really, if you have a lot of elbow grease, you could use a wire whisk for this. So the first thing we're going to do is beat our cream cheese. Now, this ricotta cheesecake actually has cream cheese plus ricotta cheese. And I like that combination because the ricotta gives it that really nice light and fluffy texture, while the cream cheese gives it that real cheese flavor. So you will need one 8-ounce package, 227 grams of cream cheese. I like to use the full fat here for the cheesecake. Gives it a much richer taste than using the low fat. So I'm just going to beat or process this just until it's all nice and creamy and smooth. Okay. Using a food processor is a really easy way to make a cheesecake. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to add 1 cup, 200 grams of granulated white sugar. And we're just going to beat that together, or process it, I should say. That looks good. When you're making cheesecakes, the object is to just mix all the ingredients together and get it nice and creamy and smooth. It's not like a regular cake where you want a lot of air in the batter. We don't want a lot of air with cheesecakes. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to beat it a lot. So that's all mixed together. So now, ricotta usually comes in a 1 pound, 16-ounce tub, which is 450 grams. So you need one of those. Try to use a ricotta that does not have that gum added to it. I think the texture is so much better. I always find it is kind of, the ones with gum, they are kind of gummy tasting. I don't like that personally. So look for a brand that doesn't have that. I'm using the whole milk ricotta. I have made this cheesecake with the skim. It does work. It just doesn't, of course, it doesn't quite have that really rich taste that a full fat one has. And this ricotta is very thick, and as you can see, there's no water in the tub. If you open your ricotta cheese and there's a lot of water, drain it. Just get a fine mesh strainer, put it over a bowl, and let it drain, depending on how much water, an hour or two, you put it in the fridge. You could even do it overnight. So just keep that in mind, depending on the brand you are using. So I'm just going to process this until it's all nice and creamy and smooth. Just going to scrape down. Make sure you scrape down and get everything mixed together here. Do the bottom of the food processor bowl. Just going to give that. Well, what I'm going to do right now is add, we're putting a little thickener, 1 tablespoon, 10 grams of cornstarch. You may know that as corn flour. If you didn't have that, you could just use flour. And then just like a 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Bring out those flavors and just mix that in. Good. So now we need 4 large eggs. I didn't say, but I'll say it now. Your cream cheese, your ricotta cheese, and your eggs, have them all at room temperature. That way they're nice and it'll get a lot smoother than if you try to beat cream cheese that's cold. Lumps don't come out very easily. So 1 egg at a time. Just beat that in and then add the next one and so on. So I'm going to add the last egg, along with 1.5 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. And try to use the pure, it's much better flavor than the artificial. And then we're going to add the zest of 1 small lemon. The zest being just the outer yellow part of the skin. Don't grate the white part. And try to buy organic, especially when we're using the skin of the lemon. Organic is much better. You could use orange zest here as well, if you would prefer that. Or leave it out. I mean, if you don't want it, you can just leave it out as well. Okay. So now I'm just going to give this as you can see, this is really easy to make. Whip this up in no time. Okay, so I'm really going to give the bottom of this a good stir, because as you know, it tends, especially the cream cheese, tends to cake on the bottom of the bowl. Okay, more quick burst here. Okay, that's it. I'm just gonna... So now, like I said, we're going to do a water bath. And the reason we're doing that is because cheesecake is essentially a custard, and we don't want it there's lots of eggs in there. We don't want the eggs to curdle. So if you put them in a water bath, that kind of protects the eggs from curdling, and also it tends to give your cheesecake that really nice creamy smooth texture. So we need a large pan, roasting pan or some kind of pan, and I like to put a cloth on the bottom of my roasting pan so that when I put my spring form it doesn't kind of rattle around. And you want enough room all the way around that we can put the water, and you need hot boiling water, preferably. So now, just put your finger in the bottom of your food processor. There's a little hole there to hold the blade. You don't want the blade falling out in your pan. So just pour. Doesn't that look gorgeous? This, if you kind of compare it to a New York cheesecake, this ricotta, because it has a combination of the cream cheese and the ricotta cheese, is much lighter in texture and taste. It's very nice. So now, there we go. So now some people like to put the roasting pan into the oven, pull your rack out, and then pour your hot water. That's probably the best way. I'll just do it here to show you. So you need some really hot water and just pour it. So it comes, part almost halfway up the sides of your springform pan. Make sure you just get the water in the side. Don't accidentally pour it into your batter there. And be very careful, as you can see, while steam, this is hot. So now baking time. It's hard to say because everybody's oven's different, and two, how hot is your water? That's going to really affect your baking time. So somewhere between 50 and say 65, 70 minutes. So really, we need to go by what it looks like. So what it will be is it'll rise a bit, it will set, and it will be a little golden brown around the edges, but when you kind of gently shake the pan, it will still shake just a little in the center. That's how you know it's done. So be careful when you do this. Okay, our cheesecake is now done, so be very careful with this, really hot water. Leave your mitts on and then gently move it and put it. So there we have it. As you can see, there's some browning on the top around the outer edge. If I just kind of shake it, there's still a little bit of a wobbly to it. So now what we want to do is let this cool completely. And then what I would do is just take a sharp knife and run it around the inside and then cover it and put it in the refrigerator, preferably overnight. But maybe if you want to serve it the same day, that's fine. Just let it chill for maybe 3-4 hours. So we'll do that. I'll let this cool, put it in the fridge, and then we'll come back and I'll slice a piece. So I let the ricotta cheesecake chill for about 3-4 hours. And so now we'll cut a slice. So just lift it away from the foil. And then I just take a sharp edge and take a knife or flat spatula and just run it again around the outside, and then just unclip. And there we go. Doesn't that look nice? So to cut it, what I like to do is have a glass of hot water and then just dip my knife in there. Kind of helps get a cleaner cut if you have a hot knife. And then just cut through. And I'll just wipe that. And again, dip. Wipe it off. Just to either take your knife, or if you have a flat edge spatula, you could use that. See if it'll come out for me. There we go. It's a clean edge. So there we have it. So try it, see what it's like. Oh, very nice. Got the graininess from that graham cracker crust. If I contrast it to a New York cheesecake, the texture, while it's smooth with a little bit of graininess from the ricotta, but it's much more light and fluffy in texture. And also the flavor is a little milder because you have that cream cheese as well with the ricotta. It's not so rich as a New York cheesecake. Now, excellent plain. You could use some fresh fruit, like raspberries, go very nicely. Just kind of decorate the top. Or you could just, fruit sauces are excellent with this. I have quite a few on the site with recipes like there's blueberry, raspberry, I have a cran raspberry, and then today I have a strawberry. So you could just kind of drizzle it over the top like that. Kind of drizzle it over and then put your raspberries. You want to do the double. And then I'll just try it again with the sauce. Yes, that's very nice. The strawberry with the cheese, excellent. So you can cover and store this in the refrigerator 3-4 days, or else you could also freeze it if you want. So, until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.